Amazing. All right. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're really excited to resume a in-person part of the lecture series. So thanks again for kicking off the 2023 WaterWatch lecture series. So my name is Brian Taylor, and I'm an educator with the North and South Rivers Watershed Association. We're really excited to be hosted here by someone very special in the community. So before I introduce you, Joe, I'm going to introduce Doug in the back. Mass Audubon. Doug, you want to say a couple of things really quick?
Sure. We are just like Brian, our kindred spirits. We are so excited to be part of this 35+ year event. Just what a WaterWatch been going that long. What a way to kick it off this year. We hope to be in person the first event, online for the youngest until the last one, and we welcome anybody to come to Stellwagen Brewery for a climate cafe on the 1st of March. You can make an evening of it. They'll let you bring in your own food, and they have a great here. Hope to see you there, and glad to see you here. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Doug.
Oh, and we're going to put together a bunch of things together. We're collaborating on a bunch of adult programming. Look forward to this spring.
Yeah. Wherever you found out about this event, you can probably find out about some fabulous events as well as full of Mass Audubon and Watershed events as well. So once again, thanks for being here. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Joe Norton here, and you want to take it away?
All right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. We're excited to have everyone here and to talk about local fish. Comes in locally here to Situate, and what we all can do to help fishermen, the fishing community, by trying fish that they catch that you may not regularly buy out of the retail cases. That's what we tried to do tonight, is come up with a couple simple, easy dishes you guys can all do at home in one pan, make it easy, using fish that you may not grab. Most people come into the retail, they're going to grab a piece of cod, haddock, or salmon, halibut. But the local guys catch a lot of other species of fish that are beautiful, fresh, quality product that you may not buy just because you don't know what to do with it, or you've never seen it before, or you don't know what to do with it. What we're going to try to do, what we've been trying to do here for the local fishers, putting some of those species out in the retail, the hake, the monk, whiting, yellowtail sole. And these are species that these guys catch that they don't get as much money for because there's not as high of a demand for. What we're trying to do is bring more awareness to these fish to help the commercial fishermen increase their end price that they get at the docks for these things. So, one of the first dishes we're going to be doing tonight is whiting. Small, little local fish. We have to cut to get any amount of them, but what you get is a beautiful white, beautiful fillet. A lot of people come in, they're like, "Oh, I want this big, thick piece of fish, but I'm making a taco with it." Which doesn't matter because you're cutting it up anyways. What we did with the whiting tonight is we did fish cakes with them. And it's just take the fish cake, we'll take the whiting in a colander in boiling water with Old Bay and lemon in the water, steam that until it's cooked, put that in a bowl with panko breadcrumbs, some peas, corn, mayonnaise, mustard, panko breadcrumbs. We mix it up and we sear it off and get a beautiful taste of fish cake. Usually the ones we use in the store that we sell, we usually use haddock or the yellowtail sole, but tonight we decided with the whiting. The yellowtail sole is another local fish that these guys catch a ton of. As I explained to someone earlier, usually what you see in the retail case, you get a gray sole or a down fillet, and they present a little better in the retail because they're white meat, The yellowtail sole and local flounder usually have one black side, which is the top side of the fish, then there's a lighter side, which is the bottom side. Unfortunately, people do that in a retail case, like, "Oh, I don't want it, it's a little darker." But in reality, it's a beautiful fresh fish. You can do the same thing with it. It cooks out white. So tonight we're doing a fish taco with that. Same ones that Kevin caught yesterday that we have tonight. We also donated 1,000. We're doing 1,000 fish tacos at the Situate schools tomorrow. So all the schools, the high school, junior high. Thank the friends of the South Shore Fisheries. And the last dish we're doing is a monkfish tikka masala. Monkfish is something we sell retail, but again, a lot of people are like, I love to try it, I don't know what to do with it. And all we did with this is we just cut it up, cubed it, tossed it in flour, seared it off, made a tikka masala sauce, rice, put it over it. It's gonna be delicious. You're gonna love it. So we're gonna get out for its little snack for you. I'll hand it over to Kevin Norton, who owns the fishing vessel assembly out of Situate, and is really involved in fishing community. Hi, oh yeah, I'm Kevin Norton. I'm on Situate, 70-foot steel dragger. I fish brown fish pretty much year round. And I think the biggest thing that the reason I came tonight is we're able to do a lot of things with a lot of really nice local fish. We work in an industry where it's very regulated. We find out at the beginning of the year what National Marine Fisheries Service and NOAA says is in the ocean and that we can work on. So we'll find out this year now, the next year's fishing season, there's 3 or 4 really healthy stocks of flounder. So they want us to work, they want us to fish on flounder. Still worry about codfish, they want us to stay away from codfish. Haddock, they're up in the air on, and we've been working on haddock for the last few years. Now they're starting to pull back on the haddock a little bit, give that a rest. So that's tricky for us because everybody loves cod and haddock. So when we get news like this, we're going to slow down on the cod, we're going to slow down on the haddock. So the other 5 or 6 things we catch, people aren't familiar with. So what happens was our price, crashes, or we have to start, shipping it around the country. And we shouldn't have to do that in this community where we live. You know what I mean? Sometimes it might just take the fact that people are going to have to change their taste a little bit. They're going to have to try different fish. Because Joey's right, it all is a beautiful white. We have a great selection in front of us right here. We have beautiful white seafood, beautiful fresh fish, but it doesn't always look the same as the big white cod fillet or the big haddock fillet. And people do have to learn how to cook it. It's a little bit different to cook it. But yeah, I'll be honest. I've been fishing for a lot of years, and I'm really nervous this year because the cuts on the codfish are still in the 80s and 90% of what we used to catch it. And now the haddock was just had about an 80% reduction. And they went up 4 times on each flounder stock. So if I'm allowed to catch 100,000 pounds of yellowtail flounder next year, now I can catch 400,000. So they're saying there's a ton of flounder out there, go for it. But we have to figure out a way to sell it. Right. And when I'm used to catching that much haddock, and the haddock's gone, so it's gonna be a tricky year. So that's kind of why we're doing a few of these events, because we're gonna talk to the public and say that we're gonna continue to have a fishing community in a few of these small towns. We're gonna need a little bit of people to start trying some other fish that aren't as familiar. And it's for the good of the ocean. If the science is right and the research is right, and they're telling us to lay off these fish, keep it at certain catch limits, then that's what we're gonna do. And we have a really great group of fishermen here in Situate. We have like 5 full-time groundfish guys, and we belong to a group that's called the sector. We work under a total allowable catch, how much fish we're allowed to catch. We stay under it every year. And if we don't stay under it, we'll put out of business. So it's a system that we work with. But so hopefully everyone tries something different tonight. See how they like it, and Joey's a great cook. He can, that's the other thing. Maybe think a lot of the stuff, just getting some recipes out to people and different ways to cook things. I love yellowtail flounder. It's one of my favorite things in the ocean. But it's just got I cut different fish all the time, try it. So, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to all those who showed up on Zoom. I just want to say we've got about 80 people that are watching this on Zoom as well. So thank all of you for showing up out there, and we'll definitely hope to see you next week. I'm sorry you couldn't be here with us today.
Sorry to take any food.
Yes, I'll be sure to have their share.
Just quickly, I'll go back to that. It's a really tricky piece of the puzzle here. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment on my boat to catch haddock. I have haddock nets, I have haddock doors, I have haddock everything. I have sounding equipment that I put on the boat to find haddock. I've spent so much money to fine tune my boat to catch haddock. Now they're telling me I can't catch haddock anymore. So there's that whole other piece of the puzzle that, now I'm gonna be switching back my boat to a whole different kind of net, doors, the whole configuration is gonna change. So it's also a cost for us too. So, of course, I'm in the business, I'm gonna stay in the business, I'm gonna continue fishing, but I hope, I gotta be able to sell my product.
I explain them a little bit too, like, so, yellowtail sole whiting, they don't get that much price at the dock. I mean, there's daily auction every day that sets the price on all the different species of fish in the land, New England, really. And that price changes every day based on supply and demand of buyers who are buying to the auction. So a yellowtail sole, because they're smaller and it's more labor intensive to cut and produce, and there's not a big demand for them because of the darker meat and whatnot, they get a lower price for that. Say it's $1 a pound. Codfish, they may get $3.50, $4 a pound for it. But to catch the codfish, they have to buy it.
You have to
explain it better than I can.
So, yeah, we receive an additional allocation. It's very small, like cod and haddock. So when I run out of my codfish, which happens immediately, in the first few weeks of fishing, I have to start leasing codfish from people that aren't fishing right now. So right now, for me to catch a codfish, I pay $3 a pound. I bring it in and sell it for $2 a pound. I lose $1. So, and that's very common. The lease price on those is see what you get back to buy.
A question, explain how you target one fish, you must catch some of the other fish.
We do get some of it,
You
but
also release it a lot.
like right now, so I have electronic monitoring on my boat, which cameras on the boat that watch me. I did that myself. We like that. Everything's on the open. We're trying to make it work with science. We want them to see what we're catching, see what we're discarding. We pay for discards. Any pound of fish that I kill, I pay for. So my gear and equipment is fine tuned to not catch that fish. I don't want to go out and kill 10,000 pounds of small yellowtail and pay for it. So if you come down my boat anytime, we have Frankie from the Master Network. You know what I mean? We use different kinds of sweeps, different kinds of mesh, different mesh sizes, tops. So like a lot of those small fish will escape. Because once we bring them on board, I own them. I'm paying for it. So the rules are unbelievable, but we do have a healthy ocean, and we have an ocean full of fish. We just have to harvest it the correct way. Those are the rules we follow. I don't think people understand how regulated we are and how closely they watch us. I cannot leave the dock without 5 cameras on my deck looking down on me. The only other option to that is to bring an at-sea monitor, which is to bring a person who's fishing with you that we pay.
Why doesn't the association, not just into a whole Northeast, get together, hire a public relations consultant that goes out and talks to millions of people about brandage, incredible fish. Yellowtail sole.
This is a whiting fish game.
It is something we definitely need to do. Our biggest problem with that is foreign fish. So most of your restaurants are carrying fish from US Food Service, Cisco, Pacific, it's previously frozen. It's cheaper, it's easier, they don't, everything's portioned. They don't have to worry about it, they pull out the piece of what they need tonight.
You know, so, yeah, if you wanna go, you know, it's always a good question to ask a restaurant, where did your fish come from? You know, what are we eating? Where did this come from today? And I tell you, I'll be honest, I asked that question and they tell me this fish came from Situate. I think to myself, no, it didn't. You know what happens. But, you know, restaurants have had a tough time with COVID. And you hate to slap any business around, but it is time to say, you know, speak up and say, where did my fish come from? Right. And that's okay to say. I asked.
Next up, I'd like to introduce Frank Malachi, who's been integral in the fishing industry in Situate for a few years. Fishing together and just our face and all the information. He's up in the state house. He's fighting every meeting he's at, just trying to make sure that fishing industry gets fair share. He's gonna explain to you a little bit how we started a nonprofit here in Situate and what we try to do with that and some of the struggles that the fishermen are dealing with legislative wise. So Frank, there you go.
Thanks all for coming. I really appreciate it. Your support for local fishing. It's really important. It's noticed. So I'm Frank Maragi. I've been here a long time. I started fishing at Situate when I was 19 as a deckhand on the Francis Elizabeth. That was in 1962. A lot of years have gone by. I had one of the section, 3 boats. The Kathleen Maraki, the Christopher Andrew, and finally the Barbara Peters, which I sold about 5 years ago. The cabin.
Is it still floating?
Yeah, well, it's down in Connecticut, Stonington, Connecticut. Went down there. Kevin has a little bit bigger boat, but he has a different fishing strategy than I did. Fishing more on shore. So anyway, the fishing business has changed immeasurably in the years that have gone by since I started. When I started, basically, it was the Wild West. There were no permits. There was no mesh regulation. There were no TV cameras. There was nothing. We just went out and caught as much fish as we could. And the result of that was basically overfishing and depletion. After 15 or so years of fishing that way, the big event that pushed us over the brink as far as domestic fishing was the Magnuson Act, passed by Congress in 1976, which basically gave U.S. fishermen jurisdiction of monopoly over the 200-mile fishing limit zone along the coast of both the Atlantic and Pacific and Gulf coasts. So when that happened, everybody went into a boat building frenzy. You know, when I had the Christopher Andrew built down in Jacksonville, Florida in 1976, that yard was turning out 3 boats a week, 3 boats a week. They built 1,000 boats in a couple of years. It was absolutely incredible what's going on. It didn't take long for depletion to show up, and the fishing got worse and worse and worse until science and regulation moved in the early 1990s, and everything changed. And everything that Kevin told you was absolutely correct. Here's a little bit of what I would call socioeconomic perspective on this. He's looking at the scientific side. I'm in a place in my life now where I don't fish anymore, my needs basically, but I still am very involved in policy. I'm actually the bookkeeper for the sector, so I know about all the money that comes and all the money that goes, and too much goes and not enough comes. So local fish is really important that way. But one of the things you need to consider is that fishing is a business, and as a business, there has to be an incentive for people to get into that business. Right now, there isn't. It's next to impossible for a young person. When I started, it cost me nothing. It's strong back and work ethic. Now a fishing permit costs in excess of $100,000. And as Kevin explained to you, in order to go fishing, you have the least quota of somebody else. So you buy a permit. There are only about 1,200 permits for New England groundfish in existence. There are also only about 150 boats still fishing in New England for those species of fish. So the balance of the permits are held by people like me, as a matter of fact. I own permits still that I kept, who are leasing that quota to the active fishermen. But what happens when we age out? You know, eventually we're all going to go away, and what's going to happen? Well, what's happening right now is the fishing industry is disappearing. We're aging out, we're graying out, they say, and it's troubling. So what will we do to keep fishing alive in places like Situate? And let me just digress a little bit here, that it's important, it's a cool place, it's nice to go down there and smell the bay and see the seagulls and everything, but it's food, you're enjoying this wonderful food today. I think a lot about, this is something I didn't usually think about, but food security, where is this coming from? Is it sustainable? As far as American fish is concerned, yeah, it is sustainable. But worldwide, maybe not so much, where there's not a rigorous regulatory system in place. So to me, it's really important that a community like Sedgwood that has a 300-year history of taking fish from the city in a, mostly sustainable way, and definitely sustainable way in the last 20 or 30 years. How do we keep the human side of this alive? So one of the things that we've done is try to improve the business vitality of those that are still fishing. So we've started this non-profit called the Friends of South Shore Seafood Development. Eventually, we're what's called a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're also a certified public charity with the Massachusetts Attorney General. So we're hoping to be able to do fundraising. So, we can begin to bring in money that will supplement the value of the fish. The plan right now, the big plan is to take these low value species like you're enjoying today and give them to people. We're going to send some fish, I think, tomorrow to the Situate Food Pantry. At no cost to the pantry, free. Friends of South Shore Seafood Development is going to buy the fish from Kevin at a fair price, not necessarily the auction price, because the auction price, he's explained already, is so low you lose money on. So this is at least a break-even price for Kevin. Keeps him in business, feeds the public. Same with the schools. We're going to be hopefully maybe once a month or every couple of months send 1,000 dinners to the schools. Let the kids there learn where this fish came from. It didn't just come out of a container. Yeah, it came from the pier, Situate pier. It was processed in a Situate processing plant by Situate people, or at least South Shore people, and it's fed to the children of Situate residents. I mean, how high a circle can you get? So, Friends of South Shore Seafood Development, I hope you're going to hear more about it. We're going to be working on that. Now, the bigger picture, and even more complex, is what happens to these permits. As I mentioned, there was only about 1,200 and something permits in existence. One of the things that's really troubling is the corporatization of permits. There's 2 or 3 different entities right now that are buying fishing permits because they're potentially valuable. Right now, they're not worth a whole heck of money. If you're a millionaire, $100,000, it is if you're something working on deck on a fishing boat trying to pay the note on that. But anyway, they're holding these permits in the hopes of cornering the market on the access to the fishery itself. And the fishery is in the ocean, and who owns the permits has access to those fish, So if we can keep the permits in the community, we can continue to have access to those fish and continue to do things like this meeting tonight and future meetings and public charities and events and things of that sort. So we've been doing. So what we have is called a permit bank. Permit bank right now is located in Plymouth, but we work hand in glove with it. Permit bank is called the South Shore Fishing Community Preservation Fund. What it does basically, it takes and leases quota from the permits that it owns to fishermen, and with that lease money, it buys permits for fishermen who want to retire and keeps them in the community so they don't get aggregated by a corporation. And then the next step, which we haven't reached yet, is we're going to have what's going to be called an apprenticeship program, where somebody who comes up through the ranks, works on deck for a few years, has the skills and the wherewithal to become a boat owner. Okay, you want to be a boat owner? Here's the permit. We'll pay it back over 20 years by going fishing and selling the fish within the community again. Okay. Right now, the permit bank has, I believe, 13 permits, which were acquired over the last 10 years. It was primarily funded with money from the installation of the LNG terminal in Boston. We got a $1 billion from them, which has all been invested in permits. And since that initial infusion of money, the money has been coming from the sale of fish, and leasing that quota. So we hope to move ahead in this way so that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, there'll still be a pier, there'll still be some fish coming through places like Mullaney's, through restaurants like on Front Street, through the public schools, through the food pantry, and to the public in general, that is locally caught, sustainably harvested, and available hopefully forever. You know, we're just gonna keep all these moving pieces functioning. It's a lot more difficult and complex a job than you might think. So fishing has evolved from simply grunt work, going out, you know, at the break of day, putting in days, work, catching your fish, selling your fish. Now it's, you gotta be looking at 20 and 30 years into the future to be able to say that, yes, indeed, we have a sustainable fishery, sustainable not only for the resource, but sustainable for the humans that harvest that resource. So, in closing, thank you so much for coming. And I think
Yeah, so if anyone has questions, please say it nice and loud so everyone at home can hear as well. So,
I would be really interested to know about when you first started fishing. And they talk about the cod being, you can literally walk across the water because of something, and what it was like at the end. What was the difference between the first day and the last day?
the question is, what's the difference in abundance of codfish between 1962 and today? And, you know, the answer is this: from the perspective of the fishermen, more fish in the ocean today than there were in 1962. I mean, this is no baloney. We can't catch it because of the restricted catch line, but there's a lot of fish. Now, you were not walking on cod in 1962. You know, one of the things that was going on that I didn't mention was foreign fishing. It was a huge presence, primarily Soviet bloc vessels. You know, we'd be fishing on Middle Bank, and there'd be East Germans and Poles fishing right around us. It was absolutely amazing. Wow. That all went away in 1976 with the Magnuson Act. So that is just, you know, where to blame. But we absolutely did overfish in the late 1980s. Mid 1990s, to the point where we were catching about 60 pounds towing out. That's what I measured. The productivity in the context of a fisherman. How many pounds of fish you catch towing a net behind you? And we were down to 60 pounds an hour. Now we're what, 500 pounds an hour? 500 pounds an hour. So it's, you know, it's eight times as much fish measured as this catch per unit effort. Now, you'll hear about overfishing and overfish. And basically what that means is the target biomass. In other words, we're not just arbitrarily going out and saying, oh, that looks like a lot of fish over here. They go out with a standardized survey. This is they being the National Marine Fisheries Service. And they go twice a year. They make 370 different polls up and down the East Coast from North Carolina to the Canadian border. And they compare the results of those polls from year to year, see if the biomass is going up or down. And then they estimate how many thousand, they usually use metric tons, you know, rather than pounds of fish, how many metric tons of fish there are. And if they're below a target threshold, then that stock is considered to be overfished, even though the fisherman says, oh, there's a lot of fish, well, not as many fish as there could be according to the survey. So that's a bone of contention, but we are working at it. And the bottom line is, lack of fish is not a problem. Lack of quota to catch that fish is a problem. Economics that are adverse to the running of a profitable business, that's a problem. But we're not going to run out of fish. We're going to run out of people before we run out of fish.
So, does the government have any, 0% financing permits or boats? Do they have any programs at all?
No.
Well, years ago, they bought back boats, right? When
There was a buyback, yeah.
right. So why can't you get that going again, something like that? Not a buyback, but I mean, 0% loans, so you have to pay it back, but at a reasonable rate.
They could.
For
But
permits.
I mean, we're not waiting for the government. Basically, our strategy is we're going to do it ourselves. You know, if we can do it through fundraising, small events, if we can aggregate our resources so that we can maybe collateralize a loan to get a better interest rate. You know, I don't have a specific answer, but I'm not waiting for the government to come and fix it for me. I want to fix it myself.
The average fisherman now owns at least 4 to 6 birds. I understand the staff. But I own 4 permits and at least fish all the time. Wow. So you're constantly, pulling the directions to get more water so you can fish. And the sad part is, buying these more permits, right now, we just talked about it in the meeting of the day. It's only 27 boats my size actively fishing in Georgia's cultivation. 27. Wow, slow. Wow. So it's only about 200 active vessels, and that's only considered like 10 foot trails. Wow, so I mean, it is not, it is definitely on life support.
Can one of your permits cover multiple boats?
I could pull one of my permits off and put it on the boat.
Oh, you can't.
I could do that. But there's just no way, you just can't, like Frank said, you can't just, you know, walk down to the pier and decide I'm gonna buy a boat and a permit and go fishing. It's not gonna happen.
It's a complex business plan you have to have now. So you have to look at what kind of quota you get with your permits, what's the revenue gonna be, what's the net return on that gonna be after you pay off the lease? And is that enough to run the boat pieces of business, buy the fuel, buy the ice, pay the, buy the fix the net and all that sort of stuff. So this is a separate layer on top of the fishing
Do
layer.
you work with the Small Business Administration at all?
Yes, I have. We actually have an SBA loan collateralized, it's created liquidity to do some of these trades that we're doing right now, which we're paying back over 30 years. I guess you're right, it is your low interest loan right now, it isn't, okay,
So it's there, yeah.
yeah, we haven't bought any permits, we're using it to do our quota leasing.
Right. Another big piece of the puzzle too is the ocean's changing daily. What we're seeing up here, with the warm water. So the Gulf of Maine is, as we've all heard, is warming faster than anything else. In the ocean. So a lot of the fish we're catching now, like just yesterday, I had almost 200 pounds of scup for the day. That's something you only see in southern New England. That's not a fish you see up here. You know, squid, summer flounder, fluke, black sea bass. So we're running into this issue now where we're gonna have a permitting problem where these fish are gonna ship from southern New England here, and we're not gonna have the right permits for them. So now there's gonna be a big shift where all these guys are here to buy squid permits, black sea bass permits, scud permits, fluke permits.
Maybe someday we'll have yellowfin tuna and mahi-mahi.
I get
You click on it.
We have one other question in the back, and then it's like they've got the monkfish to keep it on. Yeah, so one more question.
Curious quickly, who do you write the check out to when you buy one of these permits?
To the owner of the permit,
Who gave the owner of the permit a permit?
the government did. The fishery became a limited access fishery in 1996, so whomever was fishing in 1996 got a free permit that's now worth $100,000.
up to $1 million.
Up to, depending on what, yeah.
So the government is not issuing them.
No,
Well, this is an investor thing that.
Yeah.
Invest in a permit and then take as much as you can, not add any value.
you got it, that's exactly right.
So next up, we're gonna introduce another unfamiliar fish. Maybe some of you have met the monkfish.
So we got monkfish and we did it as a tikka masala.
They can only, yeah, there you go. Now they know. All right, so tikka masala, yummy. So Frank, can you tell us a little bit more about monkfish?
Well, sure. Monkfish is actually very interesting. It used to be a trash fish. We used to throw them away.
Trash fish.
Yeah.
right.
My first experience with a monkfish when I was like 18 years old, like my food stuck in his mouth. Get away, it ruined my food. Cut my foot and we threw it away. A few years after that, an export market for these fish in Asia occurred. And we were selling monkfish at a fairly reasonable price to Japan and to Korea. And it turned from a trash fish into at least a limited value fish. Now to the beginning of a domestic market, enjoy it, but this is the beginning of a domestic market. It's a great fish.
So can we have somebody say what it tastes? Well, obviously the tikka masala gives it a lot of Indian flavors, but anybody have any?
What's different? It was known as poor man's lobster.
Yeah.
Poor man's lobster
Yeah.
is what it used to.
And
be.
it's
been known as.
delicious.
It has an interesting texture. It's not flaky like a regular fish,
It has a little more flavor than a cod.
More than a
I
cod,
think it has a little
a
more.
little bit more fishy.
Yeah.
than-
a little more.
The cod doesn't have much. Yeah.
What's nice about monkfish too is it's a firm fish, so you can put it into a stew, you can put it into. You can cook the hell out of it. Honestly, you can be a bad cook and cook the hell out of it, and you're really not gonna destroy it that much. What we did here was, all we did was coat this, a little bit of flour, browned it, threw it in the oven, tikka masala sauce and Indian sauce with rice, and it, very easy meal to make at home. literally, you can make this in, long as it takes cooking the rice 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Good healthy protein.
and it's a great healthy protein, it's tasty.
Joby, are all these fish are fish that we can buy here?
These are all fish that you definitely can buy here, you know, when the boats bring them in, we have them downstairs. If you don't see it in the retail stores, you can certainly ask for it. It doesn't mean we don't have it in the building, we may not have it out in display, we may have it on that, and we have to cut it for you, but we do usually have everything here, in one way or another, so.
So the grocery stores though, do they carry it or do you have to come to like a fish only store?
You might be able to find it in a Whole Foods or Roach Brothers occasionally, but again, since it's not a popular fish that people go through, if you know, a Whole Foods isn't gonna buy it and have it sit in the back room or not sell it. You know, fortunately for us, we do a lot of wholesale in restaurants, it's the majority of our business. So if the fishermen come in to Yellowtail Monk or something like that, if we don't sell it in the retail, we can sell it off to a restaurant. You know, I spend a lot of time talking to chefs and restaurateurs about, you know, getting these local fish on their menu, utilizing that. So many times chefs and restaurants think like they have to have this big piece of protein in the center of the plate sticking up with all the stuff hanging off it to make it look good and make it big and, you know, make it look appealing to them. And half my battle is, you know, you're the creative side, you know, take something like a yellowtail sole that's smaller, and instead of putting one big fillet on, put 3 on it. It's the same weight, you know, 6-8 ounces or whatever you're trying to do. But it's just, you know, you have to present it a little differently. Same way with like whiting, you know, or hake, people fish tacos. You know, fish tacos, they're super easy to make. So many people come in, like I said, they'll buy cod or haddock, halibut, something like $30 a pound, and fish tacos, or no, use whiting, use hake. You know, you're cutting it up and you're putting a little 2 ounces on each taco. You don't need to spend $15, $20, $30 a pound on something that, you know, you're putting speaking of a guy or salsa or something on it. Anyways, you know, use what is gonna work and save yourself $20, $30.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how you made the fish taco? I think you were so busy in there.
Super easy. It was just a yellowtail sole. We had flour and cornmeal, a little Old Bay. Dusted it in that, put it in a pan with veggie oil, it was brown on each side. Taco, we put some, actually Mullaney's coleslaw without the dressing on it, down the bottom. Fish, some salsa, cilantro. I mean, very simple, very easy. Anyone can make, you know, anyone can make that at home.
Yep.
Without hurting themselves. Same way with even the, you know, the fish cakes, you know, a couple of the white pieces of paper here. We have left out the ingredients and basically how we did it. And it's very simplified, but all the menus we did, you guys ate tonight, are super simple to make at home. With the ingredients that you have in your refrigerator. We try not to, you know, use these ingredients that you have to go buy somewhere, you know, use peas and corn that you get in your freezer, with fish cakes, you know, or whatever.
So what's the difference? How much is the price? Like you said, it's cheaper. What's your
So like,
30, you know, when you go to the fish store days and you get your fish, you're like, wow, this is a special deal.
so whiting and retail is, I think, $8.99 a pound.
$8.99, that's a good price.
Haddock, I think, is like 14 or 15, cod is 18 or 19, halibut's 30, 32. So for that presentation, so much
So
easier.
these are like less than
I
$10.
think what you're doing when you're buying the whiting and the yellowtail sole, it's like these guys said, you know, we could pay them more. We're selling it for me, we're selling to you at $15, $16 for the yellowtail sole. Instead of them getting $1, which is fit in their wheel, we can $1.50, $1.75 to them, which makes a difference in the long run on our profitability of the small business.
Can you put these recipes up on your website? You already have two of them.
My website is horrible.
Right. We
Sam's
can
got a good website.
take the
Yeah.
recipes that he has, we'll be sending them, you guys, we all have your emails now, forever. So, so you'll be haunted by us forever.
Right.
We'll send you these recipes.
And all, you can send them out like that. The other thing we like to do is, honestly, all of our employees that work in the retails here, even the young kids, you know, we train them to be able to tell someone, you know, when they come in and say, oh, you know, what do I do with this piece of cake? They train to give you a couple ideas of what to do with it. And we find the best way to get that across to the customer is face to face. You know, read something on a website, you can see it, but then you're gonna forget about it, and someone says, hey, you know what, this thing's gonna do this, do this, do this. You more have to remember how to do that in the home. I hate to say it, yeah, for us, you know.
So they're gonna.
Good.
That's not with your clicking.
Sorry.
So the question was, do you sell anything prepared and ready to go?
So we do prepared foods ready to go, but to take home and reheat. So we don't do anything, you can come in and get a hot meal like this, hang around and eat. We do a lot of meals that, you can come in and make home. Again, we try to make it super simple, where you take it home, put it in the oven in 10 minutes, 375, you're done. We did today, I think I did some spinach and then, like this scallop and some ravioli thing, that, you know, you just take home, heat up, and you're done. You know, we do a lot of stuff sold, you know, we use the local yellow field sold, stock down with ground meat. Again, you take it home, when you're done, 10 minutes, 375, and you get it home.
So I think because the people are at 8 o'clock, the Zoom world is gonna go away, and I'm sure that it's a little hard for them to be engaged as we are. I just want to give a couple of plugs for our sponsors. Which are Clean Harbors, and the Cultural Council has provided a series throughout this series. The Duxbury, Marshfield, Norwell, Pembroke, Plymouth, and Situate, we did them all up at the Cultural Council. They were wonderful to support us. And Mass Audubon is our sponsor. And really Mullaney's and these gentlemen with this event are really the co-sponsors to this. And I hope that those of you at home and those of you in the audience here learned a little bit about some different and unfamiliar fish that I hope will become more familiar to you now that you've had a little bit of exposure to them, and that you'll help us create demand through asking your restaurateurs for this kind of fish, or going to your local fishmonger and buying it. It sounds like it's a really good deal. It sounds like a no-brainer to me that you would go and buy. So don't be afraid of the monkfish.
Don't be afraid of any.
Give it a try. Talk to your local fisherman, your local fish store. Mullaney is a wonderful resource, and we will definitely share the recipes as they are from Joby, and you can always email us and look forward to it.
Well, I mean, like I said, whatever's easy, we try to make it so that you can enjoy seafood, fresh seafood of all. The whole goal.
And I hope we'll see those of you in Zoom land in Zoom next week. We're doing our next lecture is on climate change and what you can do. We're going to have a speaker speaking of climate change and the fisheries in the ocean changing. What can we do to actually mitigate our carbon footprint with reducing it through heat pump technology? So switching your gas furnace to a heat pump technology is a really big way that you can reduce your carbon footprint. So if your furnace is just about to go, next week is your time to find out how to help. But look at the whole series, and I hope we'll see you on Zoom. And then the last one will be in person again at another place that serves. I didn't know we had alcohol. And it also serves beer, Snow Wagon Brewery. And that will be also on. Joby, thank you so much. People, thank you for being online with us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We got some stuff there.